Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Dan Danford, and I started Family Investment Center back in 1998. And I'm joined by Richard Salmen, who's the president of our firm, and our guests, who I'll introduce in just a moment. But a little background because we're joined by both clients and non-clients today. So I just need to kind of explain the relationship. Family Investment Center is an independent registered investment advisor, which means that we are locally owned. We're owned by the people in the company, and that we manage investments and do financial planning for our clients. Now, many of our clients actually have accounts at Schwab, which is how we manage their money. There's no financial link between Family Investment Center and Schwab. They just provide services to our clients, and we provide services to a segment of their clients. We're joined today by two senior technology consultants at Schwab, and it's a really important subject, and it's a really important thing to think about a little bit. In the investment world today, we are all more digitally oriented than we've ever been in the past. Whether it's account opening statements, whether it's the statements that you get by email, whether it's you're looking up your account 24/7 on your phone or whatever, those particularly confidential bits of information are out there in the digital world someplace. And we know that all of our clients and many of the other people that are watching us today have concerns about the safety of that. So we decided to go to Schwab, one of the largest brokerage firms in the world, and talk to their technology consultants about what works best. So we're joined today by Erin Donham and Paul Ewing, both who have worked with Family Investment Center in the past. But we're going to talk to them today specifically about cybersecurity and what we need to be doing as individuals to protect our things. And through the your ability to watch this, you're able to pose questions for us as well. So we'd like to invite you to do that. We have a few things that we're going to talk about in general, and then we're going to try to answer your questions as much as possible in the next hour or so. So while we get those questions queued up, if some of you have some, I'm going to let Paul and Erin both just kind of start us out with a couple of minutes of what the most important things we need to be looking at are, and kind of tee it up so we can take it from there. So I'll go with Erin first. How's that?
Thank you. Thanks, Dan. And thanks to all of you for your time today and seeing how important cybersecurity is. So the landscape, as we're seeing it from our perspective, fraudsters are more sophisticated. They're more motivated than ever before. For example, if you had your email compromised in the past, you would immediately know because the fraudster would spam out all of your contacts with a phishing email, and so you'd immediately recognize that you had been compromised and change your password and get them out. Well, nowadays, fraudsters that will, if they compromise your email, they'll lurk. They'll spend much longer in your email so you don't know they're there. They'll set up rules, auto delete rules or auto forward rules so they can read every one of your emails. They'll interject themselves in the middle of a conversation between a client and an advisor in an email, while your guard is down. They're just much more sophisticated at getting to us than they were in the past.
Yeah, and let me just add to that. And again, Dan, thanks for having us. We're
Yeah.
really happy to be here. This is a really important topic to share. As Aaron mentioned, the email is usually the easiest entry point for our bad actors or fraudsters that are out there. They're using that mechanism as a way for them to gain access to information. And in our business, we talk about phishing. And those are simply emails that are inbound into your email box that look legitimate, but they aren't. They are not legitimate, and usually those emails look like they are supposed to look like. Aaron and I were just talking about an email we received internally just a few days ago, and it was holiday themed. And so we were both on guard and didn't click any of the content within that email. But the email is going to have likely links that are embedded in that email. And if you click on that link, it may take you to a fictitious site or a site that looks legitimate, but isn't. And that email also could contain an attachment, and that attachment could look like a document source that you're familiar with. Maybe it's like a PDF or a Word document, or it could be some sort of a file extension that you're not familiar with. Either way, by clicking on that attachment, it may introduce some malicious software to be installed on your machine or on your device. So one suggestion that we make, and this is sort of a mantra of a colleague of ours, is to consider every email in that inbox is suspect, right? It's guilty until you can prove that it's innocent. And the way you prove it innocent is to hover over the link that's a part of that email. And if that link address, the URL, looks very convoluted, doesn't look like it's going to the destination or a part of the subject of that email, it may be malicious. And then again, don't click on the links, and then do a little research on who sent it to you. So if there is a recipient in that email, hover over the name of that email. It'll actually show you the email address of that party, and look for misspellings. Look for things that just look out of place. And usually, the best advice is trust your gut. Right? If it doesn't feel right, it doesn't look right, it's probably not right. And the best advice there is just to delete the email.
I get probably hundreds of emails a day, and most of them are from people I don't know because they're sales materials, basically. But I'm just ruthless. I go down through the list, and if something doesn't look right and it's somebody I don't know, it's gone.
That's right.
And I've still been caught once or twice. But I mean, there isn't any way I'm going to open something from somebody I don't know that looks suspicious to me.
Well, and Paul, we've talked about this before, but one of the other things, there's a lot of unsubscribe buttons on emails. You get all these unsolicited emails. And one of the things I didn't realize until fairly recently is you don't have to push that unsubscribe button, because that can be a malicious intent right there. But talk a little bit about the fact that your email program itself, what you can do within it to send it to the junk folder, that type of thing.
Yeah, it's I think our first reaction is like, I don't want this email. I want to unsubscribe to it. And a lot of times, maybe you did subscribe to that content at one time, or maybe you didn't. And by simply clicking that link, and it's a link that's embedded in that email, it's going to take you likely to another destination. It's likely going to ask you for some information, like, "Oh, sorry to see you go. Why are you leaving?" That type of information. And also, Richard, we talked about this. By you clicking on that unsubscribe, that's alerting the sender that, hey, this is an inbox that works. It's good. Somebody's on the other end there. So the best advice there is to simply just start dragging and putting those emails into a junk folder or a spam folder. And our email systems these days are pretty sophisticated, and can begin to learn what your habits are. So as it starts to see that these emails are going directly into a spam or a junk folder, it will learn itself and then go there automatically. But if it does end up in the inbox, just delete it. I know, Dan, I think that we talked about the email cleanup that we do every day, and I'm exactly the same. I'm deleting more than I am saving or opening, and unfortunately that's the same as my mailbox at the front of my house.
Right,
I'm
yeah.
recycling most of that junk mail, and just saving the Christmas cards.
So, Paul, one of the other things we hear a lot about is the concept that if I have a VPN, basically that protects me from everything. You see these advertisements now pretty regularly, whether it's on TV or on the radio or whatever the case may be. Get a VPN to protect yourself. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, let's first describe what a VPN is. So it's VPN stands for Virtual Private Network, and essentially this is a service that is providing a secure, encrypted, passive information over the internet. If you are operating in an environment where you need to use a public Wi-Fi connection, again, this is something we would say stay off public Wi-Fi as much as possible. If you do need to operate in a public Wi-Fi situation, this VPN can simply encrypt the data that's passing between your device and the internet. So definitely recommend that. That's something that Erin and I use at Schwab when we're traveling and on the road. If we need to connect and we don't have any cellular connection. And another best practice there is if you don't have a VPN, but you have a mobile device, simply turn that mobile device into a hotspot and transmit over the cellular connection. That is a known safe way of communicating through a mobile device. I don't know, Erin, what else would you add here on the VPN side of things?
Yeah, I would definitely make sure it was a well-known VPN. Remember, if when you are signing up for a VPN, you're sending all of your data, all of your traffic through that VPN servers. So you really want it to be something well-known, hopefully something in the U.S. And not international.
So, Erin, what about those are all really good security things about emails, which is important. Are there certain things that you shouldn't even include in an email? I mean, just no matter how secure you are, you should not put this into an email.
Definitely.
Okay.
Anything that contains your private information, such as your social security number, your birth date, a signature. Don't send anything that has your signature as an attachment. The reason for this is that ultimately what we're seeing is credentials being compromised to email. And once a fraudster compromises your credentials and is able to get into your email, they have access to everything you've ever sent or received or deleted. And so what they're doing is they're going back through and reading every one of your emails to find those little nuggets that might be 5 years back when you sent a signed form for a real estate deal that you were doing, and they can lift that signature and use it on a current form, and again interject themselves in a conversation and say, oh, would you mind putting this wire through for me? So yeah, definitely treat your email. I know, Paul, you had said earlier, similar to a postcard, really. Anything that you wouldn't be willing to put on a postcard and send it through U.S. mail, don't put it in an email. Instead, use a secure messaging system like a portal, like what you use, that requires a login and a password to be able to access it.
Yeah, I would say, as if there's something to do after this session today is really to do some cleanup on that email box that you have. Think of 5, maybe 10 years of history that's sitting in that mailbox. And 5 years ago, we weren't thinking about security, and we were passing documents back and forth over email like it was nothing. So likely there are some very sensitive documents in that email box. Make sure that you go through, clean them up. If you need to save those documents in a secure place, a portal, or download them to a secure site so that you can manage them. Get them out of your email, because if your email is compromised, it's gold, right? That's what the bad actors are looking for. Is they're looking for all of your life information that's a part of that email, and they're going to take advantage of it and use it against you.
Hey, Richard, but before we go into that, why don't you briefly tell, one of the things that happens with us is that we do tax preparation and other things for some of our clients, and we do use a portal. So can you just briefly talk about how that works and why it's secure?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we use a tool called Client View, which is part of our client resource management program. It's an attachment to it. But bottom line is, when you set up a secure portal for each client, then we can upload data to that client. The client can upload stuff to us. We can each download. We can use it as a place to store tax returns or estate planning documents, that type of thing. But none of that is going through an email program. It's all going through a secure site, which is the only way we want to share that information. And frankly, I think that's more secure than the post office these days.
Right.
Yeah.
Because so many things don't ever get to us, right? When we send them through the post office. So that's the reason we started using that years ago. And we're rolling that out to more and more and more of our clients. And I realize, from the client perspective, a lot of this stuff is painful, right? It just seems like it makes it more difficult to share information, but you simply can't afford to ignore the need for that security, which brings me to another big security issue, Paul, and that is what Erin mentioned earlier, which is passwords. Because, the vast majority of us years ago, when we started out using passwords, almost everything was a derivative of one password, right? You had one single password that maybe got modified a little bit, and that just doesn't cut it anymore. And so I know here at Family Investment Center, we've transitioned to using password manager programs, and there's several good ones out there. I think you can talk to our audience about that. But please share a little bit about both the value and the desirability of using a password manager.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. Erin's a big fan. And everyone on our team uses a password manager. But you're right, Richard. The history of passwords started years ago with the guidance that was given by the National Institute of Standards and Technology. There was a guy there who said, "Hey, passwords, they should be long, they should be unique, they should be changed frequently," and that instruction that was provided created some bad habits for us over the years. And to your point, some variation of some complex password that you used it everywhere, right? It fit the criteria for your login, and so you went with it and you used it over and over and over again, or some variation of that. And the instructions now, they have changed. The guidance has changed, and now the recommendation is longer password is going to trump anything that's complex in nature. And so the idea of an 8-character password with complexity and with symbols and letters and numbers, uh, if you take that 8-character password that literally could be broken in a matter of minutes in a brute force type style attack, taking that password out to 20 or more characters changes the algorithm of trying to break that password into, in some cases, the longer it is, years and years to brute force break that password. Um, so the big question is, well, how do we manage these long passwords? And they have to be unique, right? We can't reuse that same password. So every login has to be long. It has to be unique. Well, that leads us to some technology to leverage, and that's the password manager. Now, the password manager itself is it's typically a technology that you're going to spend a few dollars a month on, and that password manager is going to simply keep track of all of your passwords. So typically there's a cleanup process when you begin to use one. The ones that we have used in the past do a really good job of, I say, shaming you and telling you, hey, we've seen this password 50 other times in other websites, so maybe you should be changing this. And once you get there, it does take a little bit of time, but that technology will help you maintain those long, unique passwords. And then really you only need to manage and remember one password, and that is your master password. And again, the longer you can make it, the better. A strategy there is create a sentence or what's known as a passphrase. And that long sentence, that long phrase, the one The sentence that I use is 36 characters long, and I even stuck some complexity in there as well. I probably don't need it, but I can remember it, and it unlocks all of my passwords. I know, Erin, did I leave you anything there on Password Manager?
Yeah, you're right. It's a chore to change all
Yeah.
of your passwords. When I spent 2 8-hour days when I finally got a password manager, and I'm have to say I'm embarrassed that over 100 passwords were reused in different sites when I went through this exercise. And it's also important to have the password manager itself possibly create those passwords
Yeah,
Yeah.
for
we
you.
do
So
that.
my family just recently got started using 1Password. My brother and I got my dad onto 1Password, and so I went over to check his account, and I was like, "Dad, this is great. You're using 1Password." And I look in there and I see all these errors. I'm like, "What? Wait, what is this?" And then I realized what he's done is he's taken the 1Password manager and put all of his reused passwords into every entry. And I was like, "No, no, 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 Dad, you need to you need to have it create the password for you."
Well,
And
and one of the other things that we talk about as one of the huge values to clients with a password manager is there is a real tension between security while you're alive and accessing information after you pass away, right? Because we can't ask you anymore. Like, I mean, if something's simply gone, it's gone. And so what I see as one of the real values for clients in having a password manager is the one that I use. I can appoint two different people as being able to have access to that posthumously after I'm gone. And if you didn't have access to that, there's a great deal of my financial life that you wouldn't be able to get to. And I'm going to want people to be able to get to that after I'm gone. Hopefully that's more than a few days away, but they're still going to need to get there. And so I just see that as being one of the other huge advantages of being able to have an access without having to give up your security right now.
Exactly. Yeah, and Richard, you asked, so what's out there? What should your clients be looking at or considering? There are a handful that we see most frequently. Erin mentioned 1Password. That's the password manager I use myself. In the past, I've used Dashlane is another really good one, and probably the biggest one that we see even with businesses. Such as yourselves with other advisors is LastPass. So those are three real good ones. I would say if you're doing some research on a password manager, there are a number of good reputable research sites like CNET or PC Magazine. They all, I think, every year they do, hey, top 10 or top 5 password managers. Stick with ones that are well adopted, well known. And I know I mentioned pay for this password manager. You want to spend a few dollars a month, invest in the technology, know that it's going to be there, and a lot of times that investment or that payment is allowing you to use that password manager on multiple devices. And I think that's a big or a big selling point for password managers is that, oh, if I have to be on my computer, do I have a different application, or do I have to log in differently, or do I have to have something different for my phone? um, they're all integrated now and they work wonderfully, and it makes things so easy to just click a button, present your face, present your thumbprint. We're going to talk about multi-factor authentication here in a little bit, but that gains you the access to the password manager. And a lot of times I don't even know the password because the password was generated automatically when I set it up. And again, I use my face, use my thumbprint, and I'm off and running. It's super convenient.
So Erin, he touched on a couple of things there that I thought were interesting. One is most of us have multiple devices. So we have a laptop, maybe, and maybe a home computer plus a cell phone plus maybe a tablet or whatever. So talk about having multiple devices, and then also the separation he touched on a little bit is business or personal, or should it all be the same? And what do you guys suggest as best practice for separating home and work and my various devices?
Definitely. Let me answer that second question first. And that
Okay.
is, we definitely recommend a separation, as we call it, of church and state,
Okay.
where you've got all of your personal passwords on a password manager that you can take with you. All of us, we like to think that our jobs are forever, but at some point we're going to leave our current work environment. And when you leave that work environment, you can't take that work password manager vault with you. So you want to make sure that you have your own personal vault that goes with you wherever you go, and that would be a paid, uh, as Paul said, something that you're supporting, that is yours, that you own the data in it.
Okay.
Multiple devices. So I think one of the most important things when it comes to having, as you said, a laptop, a desktop, a tablet, a phone, is to make sure that you're keeping all of the software on these multiple devices up to date. I remember hearing folks say, "Oh, I'm not going to update on my iOS because it's going to make changes to it that I don't want to deal with." Actually, a lot of those patches and those updates that we see come through on our phones and our computers and our Windows and our Mac are actually security patches. They're updates in order to patch vulnerabilities that have been found within those operating systems. So it's actually more important to update those sooner rather than later.
Yeah, let me just pile on there. I deal with this all the time with my kids, and them just ignoring the updates on their computers, and I have to press upon them the importance of these updates, because it is patching the vulnerabilities that have been exposed and found. And their excuse is that it's just, I can't wait for these patches to download. So the longer they wait, the worse it gets, right? It just compiles on itself. So the more frequently you can do them, the better. I've always recommend just let your computer stay on overnight. You can, with Windows, you can set the updates to happen in the overnight. That's a nice way to manage them. I think you can do that with your mobile devices as well. Or I know with my iPhone, I can set it to do it later at night. And then as far as updates go, don't forget about all of the personal assistants, all of we call them the Internet of Things devices. So these are any device that is connected to the internet. So I know my house is becoming smarter and smarter, and
Yes.
video doorbells, and Alexa and Google, and hopefully I just didn't set those off in your house. But those are all devices that also have updates, and or we call them firmware updates. So a lot of times when you set those devices up at the very beginning, you're going to set them up, use a long unique password to set those up, and then a lot of times you can just set the updates to happen, or the firmware updates to happen automatically. That's probably the best way to management. Otherwise, you're going to be sort of managing it on your own, and
Right.
sometimes that's a little difficult. But if you can automate those uploads and the updates to happen, it's the best way to manage it.
Great. Good.
All right. So one of the other things we wanted to make sure we shared with our clients, and Erin, I'll start with you on this one, is what is Schwab doing to protect our clients' accounts? Okay, if there's a breach and a client account is compromised, some kind of fraudulent activity, help our clients understand what's going on there.
Absolutely. Our security is multi. We have excellent training. We invest in technology every year. I'd recommend going to schwab.com/SchwabSafe, and that will also take you to our Schwab 100% guarantee. But there's also some responsibility on your side and on the client side. We're partners in this, and all of us are fighting these fraudsters. And the number one thing that you can do as a client is have a unique long password and set up multi-factor authentication on in everything that you can. But actually, email is probably most important right now because it can stop those fraudsters from compromising your email credentials. And let's actually get into what multi-factor is.
Yeah.
This might be a
Good.
great time, Paul, if you want to take it from there.
Yeah, so multi-factor is simply taking something that you know your password, or you have it saved in your password manager, and you're adding something to it that you have in your possession. So a lot of times, back in the day, we had these little football size token, or they weren't football size, but they look like footballs. And you hit a button and it generated a number for you, and you would add that second factor to a password login. Nowadays, there are apps that are on our phones that can serve that purpose. And then also your mobile device itself can act as a second factor with a text message reply. So simply taking that something and adding something that you physically have adds this extra security around any password that you're creating. And Erin mentioned the email. Make sure you're enabling the multi-factor or two-factor authentication on your email. Yes, that is, every email service out there has it. Turn it on if you're not taking advantage of it. I also like to expand that into any of your banking, financial sites, social media sites as well. And a lot of times when there are the bad actors trying to gain access to your logins, you're gonna know about it, because you're gonna maybe get a text message that says, "Oh, here's your 4-digit code. Please enter it in," and you're gonna know that was stopped, right? That bad actor was not able to get in because they didn't have that second factor. They didn't have the token. They didn't have the app that they were using, because it's physically on yourself. So, and let me just fill in some other stuff on the Schwab security guarantee. So,
Please. Yeah.
With Schwab, as Erin mentioned, we are doing everything possible to protect all of our data. This is a business that literally runs on the internet, and we say this internally: is your reputation is everything, and it can be lost in an instant. So we take that very seriously, and have hundreds of individuals working behind the scenes to keep track of you logging in, and making sure that that when you're logging in, we know that it's you, and we have ways to authenticate and validate that you're the person who you are as you log in. And that Schwab security guarantee really is important, because if at any point you are experiencing any losses, or there's any unauthorized activity on your Schwab account, you're 100% covered. And that's our Schwab security guarantee. There's more details on that website that Erin mentioned, the schwab.com/Schwab safe. And I'd say, when you log in, there is actually a link on the login page too on Schwab Alliance to take you there directly. Just spend a few minutes going through it. It's going to explain the security guarantee, but there are also some other great resources there. If you feel like you have been compromised, or if you feel like you're a victim of some fraud, there's phone numbers there, and some actions that you can take to get that resolved. And I'll say too, time is of the essence.
Right.
If you are feeling compromised, or you feel like there's some fraud that's happening in your account, pick up the phone, give us a call, give Dan or Richard and their staff a call, give them a heads up that this doesn't seem right, because the faster you can respond to that anomalous activity, the better chances we have of resolving it, and resolving it hopefully with no loss of any securities or
Right.
or cash.
Yeah,
Well,
let me. Oh,
go ahead,
go ahead,
Dan.
Richard. No, I was just going to say, one of the questions that's come up over here is about Schwab verifying information and stuff. It just reminded me when I was closing on a piece of real estate a couple of years ago. I'm in the title company. My cell phone rings. I pick it up, and it says it's Schwab calling. And so I checked on it, and basically it was their wire transfer desk confirming that I actually was involved in this transaction,
Yeah.
and that I did want it to go through, and they were just checking on that. And I know wire transfers especially are given to all kinds of fraud. So I was going to let Erin talk to that for just a minute about, how Schwab watches out and what we should watch out for on the whole wire transfer thing.
Definitely. So that gets back to the essence of verbal verification, which we are very strong believers in. To put it in perspective, the last say dozen frauds that I've seen come through our system are a combination on one side of a credential compromise of email, whether that be client or advisor, and then on the other side, a lack of verbal verification, whether that be client or advisor. And those two things combined what result in successful fraud. And so what that verbal verification is, that means that one of, your team is going to be calling that client verbally saying, "We received an email from you wanting to send through a wire or a new money link or name that money transfer. We would like to verify that this is really you." And they're calling a known number, not a number that's on an email. Because again, what fraudsters will do is submit those things through email when your guard is down in hopes that you'll put it through Schwab without verbally checking first that it's real. And so Schwab, we also have our own, and I can't talk to some of the security things that we have, but we have, as Paul said, many, many, many security layers. And that verbal verification in our wirehouse is one of them.
So one question I would have, Erin, is if Schwab, if we get a phone call, one of our clients get a phone call from Schwab, how can they be sure that it's Schwab calling them?
That's a great question. And you are right that we should all be suspicious of any incoming phone call or email because of the social engineering that is happening. So Schwab does they attempt when they call to make sure that they are authenticating themselves first by knowing the information about you, who you're going through, before they start asking you questions to verify who you are. But definitely be healthily suspicious of any incoming call or email. And when in doubt, delete or hang up and call a known number.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Erin, because that's what I was going to say is just hang up the phone and then call a number that you know and ask to speak to somebody, because it's better safe than sorry in those cases. And then I just wanted to add too, along the lines of authenticating transactions and whatnot. This is something I do personally, and I think it's a lot of the online shopping that I do. I get some bank fraud questions a lot on my account, and I actually have saved the number in my phone when Schwab Fraud Bank calls me to verify transactions. And so that's a number I will always pick up if I am available. And it's all automated. Usually you're not talking to a person unless there's a real problem, but they just want to double check these transactions are legitimate and that you've authorized them. And then that goes to my point of, be aware of your financial situation. So one thing that I have set up on a number of credit cards and bank cards is every single transaction that is happening on that account, I get a little notification that comes through my phone. It's pushed there automatically, and it alerts me, oh, this card wasn't actually swiped. It was just this transaction was run. And if I know that transaction, I feel good. But if there's something that doesn't look right, I can jump into action really quickly and shut that down as quickly as possible. And again, as what I said earlier, is the faster you can respond to those fraud transactions, the better and easier they're going to be to resolve.
If I could add one more thing too, about the social engineering aspect. What social engineering is essentially fraudsters who will call or use email. The classic one is, "Oh, this is Microsoft. We noticed a problem with your Windows computer. We need to get in and fix it." Or, "This is your bank, and this is, and we want to give you some money, but we don't have access to this account, so we need to get this information from you." Or any of these types of things could be fraudsters, just like what you were saying with when Schwab calls to verify, it could be a fraudster. As an example, same thing with my credit union. I was getting verified for, she was asking me 3 different authentication questions, and I said, "Thank you so much for asking me all those questions and making sure it's me." And she's like, "Well, actually, I'm glad you say that, because so many people are annoyed at this process, and it's actually trying to keep them safe." And she said, "I just spoke with somebody, we had an older client who I had call in and knew all the answers to all the questions, but the voice was in their 20s, and I could tell the client's in their 80s." And so she put them on hold, called the client, and said, "I have this fraudster on the other line trying to get into your account." And the woman said, "Oh yeah, that's Bank of America. They're going to deposit some money. Go ahead and give them whatever access they need." And she said,
You know,
"No, it's not Bank of America. It's fraudster." And
uh,
she said after 20 minutes of talking to this woman, she couldn't dislodge the idea that that first caller was their friend. And that's the nature of
uh,
social engineering.
yeah,
They prey on our trusting nature. They prey on our
yeah.
curiosity. They prey on our needs, and they get to us in a way that they're so sophisticated and so clever. It's pretty scary.
Well, and just before we move on from this, for our clients that are listening to this, just realize that, like, if you send us an email saying, "Hey, here's my new address," we're going to reach out to you with a phone
Yeah.
call and like you said, Paul, at a number that we know, and we're going to verify that that's you. And we're not trying to be annoying. We just have to be careful. Same thing when Dan was talking about the wire stuff. I mean, that's one of the biggest risks out there, because when a wire is released, there is almost no way to get that money back. It is simply gone. Now, if it went to where it was supposed to go, great. But if it goes to the wrong place, it's just lost. And we just don't want to see that kind of stuff happen.
Yeah. Most of the time, one of the reasons why wire fraud is so popular among the fraudsters is because they're big numbers. That's typically
Yeah.
how people transfer money, the down payment on a house or whatever. So it's large amounts of money. So going from there maybe to smaller and more routine, one of the neatest new things that's come along in the last several years, as far as I'm concerned, is the automatic check deposit, where I just take a picture of my check on my phone and upload it to
Yeah.
Schwab, and they deposit it into my account. And I love it. I mean, I sometimes do it 2 or 3 times a week. But why don't you talk for a minute? I'll let Erin take a shot at this too. Why don't you talk for a minute about the security that's involved in that?
Yep, definitely. And there's two things here. First, that the security in that mobile check deposit really goes back to the security of your password that you've set up, that long,
Yep.
unique password that isn't used anywhere else, and
Right.
your multi-factor authentication setup, so that
Right.
when you're logging in to place that check deposit, it really is you and not a fraudster being able to intercept or get a hold of it. But that also would love to talk a little bit about the oh, I just lost my train of thought. Going back into that mobile, Paul, pick up, and I'll remember before you
Oh,
finish.
I love it.
yeah, no, I see a question in the chat here about just the security of those images being
Yep.
stored on the phone. The technology that we're using within our mobile app there is on par with all of the financial institutions out there.
Right.
I honestly don't know the answer to that question. If those images are stored, I don't believe they are stored locally on the device, but they are uploaded and transmitted through the secure login of the device. But again, I am a big fan of those. Of that convenience, and again, I'll reinforce what you were saying, Dan. It's a very convenient way, very fast way to get money deposited into your Schwab account.
Right. Right.
I
Yep.
remembered what I was going to say, and that is,
Uh,
we were talking about money movements and e-authorization. And what that is
mm,
instead of a form that's signed, that's submitted for a wire or any type of money movement, when you can e-authorize through your phone, it's much, much safer. The reason is because that authorization is protected by your password and multi-factor authentication. So in order to authorize it on your phone, you have to pass those first two tests to be able to say, "Yep, this really is me, and I say this is correct." So that was the second thing. But let me talk a little bit about that verbal verification from a client perspective. What we're starting to see more and more is where we verbally call a client and they say, "Yep, that wire is correct, that account number is correct, and that ABA number is correct. Go ahead and send that wire." And then the frantic call the next day of, "That wire didn't arrive. Where is it?" Come to find out, somewhere upstream, that client received those instructions by email. And as soon as they go through email, they should be considered suspect. So it behooves even clients to verbally verify, again, with that known phone number of the title company, not the email the number that's on the email, but one that you can Google, and verify those account numbers so that you have verbally verified with the source, not just whomever it came through to get to
right.
you. Consider that fraudulent.
Yeah.
Well, it does get more sophisticated all the time. So you were both talking a minute ago about just about how valuable our phones are, right? And we've got them with us all the time. I mean, you're probably more likely to walk out without your wallet than you are your phone these days. And talk to us a little bit about security on our phones. The idea of doing a port lock on your phone. Any downside to that? I mean, what are some best practices with these devices that have become such a part of our lives?
Yeah, I'll take the first cut at this, Richard. So yeah, you're right. These devices are our lifeline, and we have to protect them that way. And again, hopefully you have a password on your phone itself. I'm not finding too many folks not using a passcode on their phone, but even just 5 years ago, there were phones, Apple phones that you could just pick up and they would fire right up. I think the advent of the Touch ID and the Face ID of these mobile devices has added a level of convenience for us to have those security controls. And again, if you're not taking advantage of those, you need to do so. The devices themselves are, by the nature of the device, are typically encrypted. When you are, if you lost that device, and it was locked, and the passcode was enforced, typically folks are not able to gain access, or bad actors are not able to gain access to that data because it's encrypted, and it's your Face ID, your multi-factor authentication, your password that unlocks the encryption there on that device. So, but the smaller the devices as they get, the more important the security around those devices. And so there are anti-malware, antivirus software applications that can sit on top of those devices as well. I think there was this old adage that Apple devices were just more secure because the bad guys weren't writing the code for Apple devices because there were less of them out there. I think that's I don't think that's as true as it was, a number of years ago. So just adding that level of layer of protection is definitely encouraged. I don't know, Aaron, what else would you add there?
Yeah, I was going to pile on, especially to that passcode. Not only would I have a passcode, but I would have an auto lock that's set to either 1 minute.
Hmm.
I know that's a pain. I'm so sorry, but just imagine it's painful.
1 minute
But
is,
the
yeah.
idea is, if anybody's able to get a hold of it, you accidentally left it out, it auto locks itself and they can't get in. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, I would definitely turn on through if it's an iCloud, if it's a Mac iOS, turn on your iCloud ability to auto wipe. So you can wipe it from afar. There's also, we haven't talked as much about smishing, or it's text malware.
I was going
And
there. Yep.
yeah, and we really, the same thing applies to anything you receive by email. Having a healthy level of, if you don't know what it is and you don't know the sender, just delete. Swipe left or right. I'm not even sure what it is, but just delete it when in doubt. And same thing with phone calls. I know your iPhone will has an option under, I think it's under General, where you can say any unknown numbers just send straight to my voicemail, because so many of those numbers could be spam.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm
I was
sorry, Paul.
I was just going to add on to the smishing. Yeah, it's think of that. That's the text phishing, and I get a ton of them, and maybe it's part of my online shopping habits that are causing all of these smishing texts. But again, just like my email box, I'm deleting more than I'm looking at, and usually those smishing text messages have a URL link in there, and it
Right.
looks weird anyway because there's only so many characters that you can have in those URL links. So just delete them. Schwab, your banks, other financial institutions, they're not going to reach out and ask for information over text. They just don't do that. So if someone is asking for some sensitive information over text, it's a fraudster. Just delete it.
Well, that's what I was getting ready to ask, Paul. So, I mean, I see texts on a regular basis from people, from organizations that I do business with, right? And
Sure.
it'll be a link to a sale ad or something like that that'll bring it up in your browser. Is there anything that can be, from a bad actor, that can be done by bringing up a web link without you having to do something else that's going to cause major problems?
That I would say there's always a chance, right? That whatever you're clicking on could be not legitimate. It could be a site that can just download behind the scenes, or install malicious software without you even being aware of it. So I'm of the belief that, especially with texting, just go direct to the source as much as possible. Just as we were talking about, pick up the phone, give a call on a known number that you have looked up, and just verify, what you're looking at.
Got it. So one area we haven't touched on yet, and Paul, I'll go to you on this one first, is simply our computer security software. Back in the day, it was, I guess McAfee still in business, Norton antivirus, that kind of thing. That was always part of setting up a new computer, that kind of stuff. Talk to us a little bit about where the state of the art's at on that right now, and what our clients should be thinking about.
Yeah, it's we talked a little bit about the updates, the operating system updates, the updates that happen just on a regular basis for regular software that you're using. The antivirus and the anti-malware is typically a third-party piece of software that you would be paying for, and it would sit on top of your device and scan and update your machine as new viruses are found. It will apply a scan to alert you that, hey, there may be some malware, or maybe something installed that needs to be removed. I am a fan of antivirus and anti-malware. Again, you want to pay for it. If you're a Windows user, this is part of Windows 10 and greater. The Windows Defender is their own antivirus software. That's what I use personally, but I have also used others in the past. I know, Richard, you mentioned a couple. WebRoot is another one that I've used in the past, but definitely should have that installed on top of everything else that we've been talking about. Definitely a recommendation.
Thank you.
So we're down to 5 or 7 minutes probably here. So what do we need to talk about that we haven't already talked about?
There's the question about LifeLock that came in
good.
early, and I saw that in the chat.
Yeah.
These are services that are sort of unwinding the identity thefts that are occurring. So if you are subscribing to those services, I think they're good at what they do in cleaning up the mess. But ideally, you don't want to get into the mess. And so so everything that we've been talking about is designed to prevent your identity from being stolen, or used against you in some way. So I think that the services are great and they do clean up the mess, but you really don't want to get into the mess in the first place. So one thing that I have this kind of falls in line with identity theft is I've subscribed to a service. It's called Credit Karma. It's free, and it pulls in a couple of crediting bureaus, and it aggregates all of your credit history there. So you get a credit score, you get to see which accounts are open, and that service also provides alerts when new lines of credit are established. So if you're going to buy a new car and you take out a loan, I remember my financing, as soon as they hit the button to run my credit or establish that credit, I got a notification. So I was aware that that was happening. And again, getting in front of any fraudulent credit lines opened on your behalf, this is another way of you just being informed and being aware of what's happening. I know, Erin, is it you that locks your credit?
I have
Were
a
you gonna?
permanent. I was about to talk
Yeah.
about that. I'm on the opposite side. I have a
Okay.
permanent opt out on my credit on all 3 credit unions that I had to sign something to submit to them a wet signature to say I don't ever give out my information and don't ever allow anybody to send me pre-approved offers of any sort. And then I go the old school route. I log into annual credit report every 4 months and I download one of the credit reports just to stay aware and make sure that no fraudsters opening any credit in my name somewhere that I am not aware of.
That's advice that we've given to clients before, because the irony is the one that calls itself freecreditreport.com you have to pay for, but,
Yes.
but the one that says annualcreditreport.com is really free.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been getting
all the marketing. All in marketing.
Yep. So one thing that we haven't touched on, we've talked about Paul's online shopping habits in general, but but we haven't gotten into detail, right? So how do we know that a third-party website that we're using is safe? What our vendor due diligence when we're out there shopping, because most of us are doing more and more of this. What kind of things should people be looking for?
Yeah, well, I'll start since I have the problem. What I'm looking for.
My name's Paul, and I have a problem.
Yeah, what I'm looking for is, hey, I'm using reputable, known sites, right? I'm not going off the deep end and searching out obscure sites. In my search, I am looking for sites that when I'm shopping or making a transaction, I'm on the HTTPS version of that. And when you look at the URL of a website address, that S signifies that you are on a secure encrypted version of that site. Depending on the browser that you're using, you may see a little lock or some other designation that site, when you are entering credit card information or sensitive information, it's transmitting in a secure manner. So it is just sort of going with your gut too. If it seems a little fishy, if it's a little out there, or if maybe the site was given to you through an email or an unknown party, it's probably a little sketchier, and I would be very skeptical. So stick to what you know, trust your gut, and then what this is, I guess, what I do too. I'm a fan of PayPal because I like that there is this extra security of me logging in and using PayPal as the conduit of transferring those funds, rather than me just putting in my credit card number. Because for me, I feel like if I have some protection because things are running through the PayPal side of things, and I don't just have my credit card sitting out there.
Right.
Excellent. So one last quick question and I'll wrap it up. But if we think we've been hacked, if somebody thinks that something bad has happened, what's the first step? Erin, what do you think?
Oh, maybe she's having some technical problems. Richard, what I would do is I would pick up the phone and call. So
I might be frozen.
Yeah, you were frozen.
You just came back.
I'm taking over here, and you can pile on, Erin. So what I would do is, if it's a fraudulent transaction on a Schwab account or a bank account of your own, call those parties, right? Call Schwab, call the bank, get other folks involved if you feel like something is going wrong. So again, going back to my comments earlier, the quicker you can respond the better. From there are other steps that you may need to involve with. Maybe it's the FBI, the authorities, Better Business Bureau. On that Schwab Security Guarantee or the Schwab Safe website, there are a number of phone numbers and resources that can direct you to who to call, who to contact if you feel like you're a victim of fraud.
Well, and I'll just add to that. If you're one of our clients and you have any concern, whether it's about your Schwab account or something like that, feel free to give us a call. That's what we're here for.
Absolutely.
You know,
That's right.
as we always tell you, if it has to do with money, it's probably our job. And this falls directly under that category. And we are at the top of the hour. It's hard to believe we've spent 60 minutes talking about this, but
Yeah.
Dan and I would both like to thank Paul and Erin. We started working with Paul, it was almost 4 years ago now, when Schwab started rolling out a service to advisory firms like ours of helping us do a cybersecurity audit. And I know that we, in those last 4 years, have really significantly stepped up our game. We feel much more confident in the level of security we're operating with, the processes we're following with our clients, et cetera. And you guys have been a big part of that. So thank you very much. And thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. For those of you listening who know somebody who wasn't able to sit in on this today, we are going to post this on our website. It'll be available out there on YouTube. That type of thing. So we appreciate you giving us an hour of your time and to talk about this important topic, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.